Hi, my name is Christian, and today I'm going to be talking about something that I think is extremely interesting, which would be 3D printing. A lot of people just see 3D printing videos online, on YouTube, on TikTok, time lapses of 3D prints, and they think it's nice, it's fun, it's easy, and they have this idea in their head that, I'm gonna go buy one and all my problems in life will be fixed, and usually it's not. So I have recently just bought my 3D printer for myself, and I didn't really realize all of these commitments that it took into owning a 3D printer, and I'm kind of here to set the record straight and to make you guys aware of what it really means to own one. So first, we're going to be moving on to the time it takes to actually print these, the costs, and how useful it could really be in life. So first off, we're going to move on to free time. So 3D printing does take a lot of time. You have to search for the model. What I mean by this is you have to look for a print to actually print online, and hopefully someone has something that you're already ready to use. But if it's something a little bit more custom, like a problem that you have in your life that's specifically tailored to you, you may have to make it, which can take a decent amount of time. You may need to slice the model, and what I mean by this is if you have a smaller 3D printer, or if you're just trying to print something really big, you may have to cut up the 3D prints into smaller parts in order to glue it back together, because your small machine can't handle all of that. And you may have to troubleshoot it, and this happened to me not too long ago, where the filament didn't stick to the bed, which is where the 3D print prints on top of, and it just shot out like spaghetti strings. So there was filament covering my entire room. I wasted a lot of money. And according to Ultimaker, which is a 3D printing manufacturing company that is specialized in this type of thing, they find out there are actually a lot of steps into actually 3D printing something. The model, the slicing it, the printing, the post processing, which could mean just sanding. So if you 3D print something, it's a little bit rough, it's not as smooth that you want it, you may have to sand it. If it's not a color that's ideal to you, you may have to color it. Just things like that. Next, we're going to be moving on to the cost. So 3D printer can be extremely expensive. So you may be looking for a 3D printer, and you just see this nice looking 3D printer, and you tell yourself, oh, it's $500, it's $300. Let me buy it, I have the extra change. So you don't really take into account the filament and the tools you have to buy for the 3D printer as well. And for me, this was a big surprise because the filament alone is like $15 for a little bit over 2 pounds of plastic. And although that may sound like a lot, you kind of run through it really fast. And according to All 3D Prints, which is a printing publication website that has to deal with making prints, products, they find out that 3D pricing can vary a lot depending on the machine that you buy, the filament that you're planning to use. And by filament, I mean the plastic that the printer is actually printing out. So it has like ABS or PLA, which is usually the most common. And there's always like a varying amount of price, right? You could buy them cheap old PLA, some cheap old plastic, which is what I tend to do, to print something, or you could buy something really expensive. And you also have to take into account the tools. So 3D printing, the plastic needs to be extremely dry in order to print the best it could, because you don't really want water into the machine, because then it goes kabooey. So you may have to buy a dryer for your filament, or maybe a dehumidifier for your room, and there also may be toxic fumes. That's debated online whether printing out plastic and burning it will create a hazard if you have it in your room, leading to cancer or other things. That's why I had to have a purifier, because I have it in my room. And next, we're going to be moving on to usefulness. So how truly useful could this thing be? So in my life, I found owning a 3D printer extremely useful. It brings these ideas that you have in your head to life. It allows you to create things that you can't really buy with one click on Amazon. And according to MIT, which is a globally respected university, and MIT Open Learning, that they find that this type of 3D printing, just additive manufacturing, converts these digital products into something physical. They just find that extremely useful in life. And one such example that I could think of would be 3D printing houses, which you may have not heard of. So they have these big 3D printers that 3D print concrete, and they build houses, which is extremely cool. And one example of like useful products that I think about would be a index card holder, and this took me around like 3 hours to print. So, I didn't like having index cards all over my desk because I always need them for some reason. Or you could actually print something that's a little bit more cool and less useful, which would be this Red Hood mask that I 3D printed not too long ago. It involved a lot of post processing of sanding it down and trying to make it look nice, and hopefully it does. Um, and finally, let's move on to the conclusion. Let's wrap all of this up. So, in order to have a 3D printer, you need the actual 3D printer, the filament, the tools. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of things that you may not already have, like the tools, right? You may have to buy tweezers, scissors if you don't have that for some reason. The dryer, it just takes up a lot of time, and it's not as fast as I had hoped, which made me a little bit sad. But it's extremely useful. It gives you a lot of opportunities to create something that's tailored to you, right? It allows you to solve problems that are just specific for you, problems that you have in your life that you tell yourself they need fixing. But if you really understand all of these commitments, if you're okay with having to buy the filament repeatedly, if you're okay with having to troubleshoot the machine, if you're okay with creating cool designs like the Red Hood mask, hopefully, I say it's a well worth it decision to just go ahead and buy one. So thank you for listening to me and my raspy voice, and thank you for hearing my flexing on the Red Hood mask.